the only people that do intermittent fasting are lazy people. They cannot control their eating habits and they cannot time it. Okay? If you know what I need my proteins to release essential amino acids mainly throughout the day, I have them for any physiological metabolic need, for muscle building, enzymes, hormones, anything that we need. We have them. We don't have them enough. Now it's, muscle compromised. Okay, you don't have enough. Muscle is in the last list of priorities. So I would never jeopardize. That's why you and I always have whichever guest comes, we ask him how much protein. Right? This is a number one thing. Carbohydrates and fat we can play with. Do you really want to restrict and don't eat anything just because it's so much easier? And then, like you said, have the release the dog off the leash and eat anything. And this is what people do. I mean, most of this research is, 2,000 calories is 2,500 calories a day. Okay, and I'm going to eat in this window. What kind of calories are you eating? Are you eating the macros that you need? And then in this window, you're going to load up yourself with 300 grams of protein. Okay, 300 grams of protein plus whatever carbs, plus whatever fat. How good is this for your digestion? Okay, like you said, restricted and then overload, restricted and then overload.
Terrible.
I mean, you don't
Terrible.
You don't have to be a genius to understand that this is idiotic. Okay.
Yeah.
Idiots.
It's
0
like
to 25. What is imbecile is 25 to 50, and then moron from 50 to 75 IQ. This is diet for them. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna follow what you tell me. Why don't you follow reasonable diet, nutritious foods, small frequent meals? Like, we didn't come up with this bullshit for no reason 100 years ago. I'm saying 100, it's not that much, but bodybuilders do that. We implemented 6 meals a day. Before us, there was not too many people eating that much, right? And that was for a reason. Throughout the decades, we found what works. Anyway, that was the point I was making, and you make so much sense. I'm glad that we see eye to eye to this one, right? And I always get overexcited about this. It really bothers me when they start, research has shown. As research has shown, as research study. I mean, study anything. Study the most stupidest thing on earth, and you come up with a result, and sometimes some favorable result, or interpreted favorable. Bodybuilders
interpreted is a big
fast.
one.
Yeah,
interpreted is big.
Interpreted.
And Milos, one thing that it's like all fad diets work by means of creating a calorie deficit through a particular method or extreme behavioral change. That's it. When people ask me, how do you feel about this particular diet or that particular diet or paleo or whatever, they're all methods in which you create a calorie deficit through a particular ideology. That's how it works. And unless they're going to adopt that fully for the rest of their life and know what they're doing, it's not going to work. Just like America still continues to get more and more overweight despite weight loss drugs, despite gastric bypass surgery, despite all these fad diets, because people lack discipline. That's plain and simple. One thing also that's very interesting you pointed out is carb cycling. I remember when I was a dietitian, when I was going to school to be a dietitian back in 2007, 2006, I mentioned into my class, my professor, about the concept of carb cycling. Okay. And carb cycling got heavily criticized within my class. Oh, that's silly. Why would somebody carb cycle or have low and high days, this and that? Fast forward all the way till about 2010, and two of the dietitians showed me an article in Nutrition Dietetics journal that states that carb cycling is superior for fat loss for many, many reasons. So it's like unbelievable that we as bodybuilders do come up with concepts from trial and error of what we see. And then most of the time, general public or people don't jump on the bandwagon or follow through with it until there's some sort of shred of evidence that suggests its efficacy is is good. So that's very frustrating. And then of course intermittent fasting, and then number of feeds per day. So if somebody's feeding, I remember one time 5 meals a day, 6 meals a day, that was considered just unnecessary. You only need to eat 3 meals a day, sometimes maybe 2. And then research came out with 4 feeds per day were optimal for maximizing protein synthesis. 4 feeds seems to be the most optimal way of going about doing that. Unlike 3 meals or 2 meals, 4 meals per day provides the adequate rise and fall of protein synthesis. And then you get even flow through the entire day. 5 meals was, I think, a tiny bit more beneficial, but 4 meals was the best bang for your buck, considering the effort put forth to get the meals in and the protein synthesis response. It's funny, once research there, then it's the gold standard. But research always changes. It's always being implemented. So when someone says, hey, this is what's going on now, it's going on now based on what the research states, and research could change. And of course, majority of people do not at all look at the research themselves. They look at the abstract, they look at the title, they look at the journalist who is writing their news article on the particular topic, or study, that is. So it's very frustrating to how to sway the public, because this public can so easily be swayed because nobody does the research. Nobody does the research on the research.
Yeah, I said 100. Of course, I like to exaggerate things, but yeah, that's exactly what we were doing. Now you say, interesting word, reduce metabolic adaptation, like it's favorable. I said it many times. Look, if you're in deficit and linear, right? Deficit, your body recognize it's constant deficit. It has to adapt to it, and usually by metabolic shutdown and reduction. The greater the deficit, the faster it happens. But when you jump that, you do 2-3 days very effectively, then jump up with the high carbs. You boost that metabolism. You replenish some glycogen. There is so much metabolic benefits for us. I did this for a billion years, and I know that many coaches in Europe do that. I mean, many coaches. Tell me one that does not play with the carbs in that carb cycling manner, more or less. We all do. We all do. None of us that I know of are doing fasting, the subject of our discussion today. None of us. I mean, I don't know if any of coaches nowadays are recommending this. Fasting equals catabolism for me.